And ladies and gentlemen, the books is in. The books are in. Yep. They're in. They're here.
Log in to KofiPaisatTV.com and get Spears of the Mossy Volume 1 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, from Spears the Pen Volume 2 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, Spiritual Combat Volume 3 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, One Night Before Bed by Any Harret Shun Calfunny, Kalawa's Trip to the Motherland by Kofi Paisa, From Cocaine to Consciousness by Any Harret Shun Calfunny, As I Learned, We All Learn by Kofi Paisa. Also, if you want fresh merch, go to our online store, Family Connect Apparel, and get all the brands. Also, get our 54 deck of quiz and educational cards available now on KofiPaisatTV.com.
ETM Hotel, Marini Sean, welcome in peace. My name is Sean. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning into the Mossy Warrior Clan YouTube channel. I am not going to hold anyone up. I do see that we got a couple thumbs down real quick before the video even kicked off. So I appreciate the reaction from the people who don't like me that much, that they would go ahead and thumb down the video without even knowing what's actually going on. We're going to get into a topic on prejudice. I'm not going to be talking about it. I'm just trying to introduce it to people how it was introduced to me. And I hope that people would do their due diligence and take their time in actually trying to pay attention to what's about to go on. I see Suchek in the building, Dave B, Nusha, I see Juju in the building. I see the #1 troll in the building. You know what I'm saying? Some couple more people that are actually watching. You know, some people gonna click on and click off. That's cool. We also are live on Kofi's Facebook page. So people who are tuned in or subscribed to Kofi Paisa's Facebook page, this will be a very, very, very interesting topic for you. So again, family, please like the show, share the show, tell a friend to tell a friend. I guarantee you are not going to be disappointed in what you're about to view. And I mean view. It may, on the YouTube side, it may cut off. That is the reason why I'm going to try to run it on Facebook, but I'm going to do my best job to make sure that we get this in, because I want you to look at this conversation, or what they labeled as a debate, and I want you to fast forward it to today. Shout out to Brother Chef, because he put me up on the 1957 high schoolers conversation. And then I went back a year to review that, and it was pretty much the same topic. So I'm gonna share my screen, and then we're going to get into it. I really don't expect a lot of people, you know, especially after all the confusion and all the back and forth people are having, but I want to start somewhere. I'm not going to go in the direction that Sutek is in. I'm actually going to get us here. So without further ado, this is the 1956 high school exchange students debate on prejudice.
Welcome to our forum discussion on the roots of prejudice. All four participants in today's discussion are high school students from Africa. Let me introduce them to you now. First, from the Gold Coast is 18-year-old Alfred Bannerman. We call him Nini. It all started, Nini tells us, when he was born. He looked like a little old man, and Nini is a term of respect for an old man. We still call him Nini, and he considers it a term of respect. From Nigeria, Mohamedou Liman, 18 years old. From the Union of South Africa, Dix Lobjer. Dix, well, you should see him do the rock and roll. From Ethiopia, 17-year-old Nabiat Tafari. It was Nabiat's suggestion that we start this discussion with a prayer in case there should be violence later. What you heard was Nabiat from Ethiopia giving a prayer in the Ge'ez language. He's a Copt by religion, Amhara by race, Hebrew in origin, and an African since he's been to America. How should we start this discussion on prejudice? Would it be unfair to ask each of you what your own prejudices are? How about you, Nabi?
Actually, I'm prejudiced against the Italians, and I have been prejudiced against the Mohammedans. Since I arrived here, I have developed some new prejudices, and I never felt that I was a Negro till I came to this country.
Why?
Because my tutor in the monastery told me that I was not a Negro, but I was a sunburned Hebrew.
You mentioned that you have prejudices against Mohammedans. I am a Mohammedan, and I have prejudices against Christians too in southern Nigeria.
So you said you have prejudices against Christians in southern Nigeria. Is that particularly because they are Christians? I'm a Christian myself, but I have no prejudice against Mohammedans. I rather prejudice against whites.
But why have you got prejudice against the whites in the Gold Coast?
I think it's sort of this kind. At first, I was not prejudiced against whites anyway. I was prejudiced against fellow Africans because I had some opportunities which some of the Africans didn't get. I was brought up in a city. I lived the Western way. I dressed the Western style, and I did everything Western. And so I was looking down upon fellow Africans who live in the villages, in the rural areas. As I developed, I started getting some political ideas. Especially, I'm very much interested in the problem in South Africa. We hear quite often about how the blacks are treated there, how everything goes on there. And for instance, everybody knows that we get good friendship and peace in the world through games like the Olympic Games and those kinds of games. But everybody knows that the team from the Union of South Africa has not got a single African, which means the people in South Africa think of themselves as superior beings. And this thing gives me more ideas just to be prejudiced and discriminate against the whites. And so I'd like you to explain to me some of the policies of the apartheid system and the basic idea to the logical conclusion.
Well, in South Africa, one must realize this fact, overseas people especially, and that is that this is the first case in history that a white nation has settled itself in a black country. In the whole of Africa, there are 190 million Africans, 190 million Negroes.
Yes.
And in Southern Africa, there are almost 3 million white people. That means less than 3%. Now, in South Africa itself, the blacks outnumber the whites there by 4-1. In the States here, they outnumber the white people, outnumber the Negroes 8-1. For that reason, and for the reason, and for this fact, that one cannot ever draw a parallel line between the Negroes in South Africa and the Negroes in the States. The Negroes in the States are far above the Negroes in South Africa as far as education and civilization goes. Now, the government's policy of apartheid, that policy, the guiding principle of this policy is to help the non-whites in South Africa to self-realization in their own territories and within their own communities so that they can govern themselves. Gradually, they'll be giving more and more power to govern themselves. Now, that's what the guiding principle is, and that's what the white man in South Africa is doing.
All right, so real quick, I just want to be crystal clear. All right, the Ethiopian brother started it out first, and he said that he was taught by his teachers that he was a sunburnt Hebrew from the lost tribes. Right? He said he realizes by being in America how much of a Negro he really is. Now, I want y'all to remember that this an Ethiopian that we're watching right now saying, being in the United States, he realized how much more of a Negro he is. And then the brother next to him was a Mohammedanist from West Africa. And he said what he said, but he knew that he was Negro, but his religion was an issue for the Ethiopian brother, who also said he had an issue with the Mohammedans and the Italians. Right? So we know that the prejudices against the Italians come via the whole Selassie situation and how the Italians were trying to invade Ethiopia and that whole mess, right? We understand that. But the Mohammedans were trying to invade and come into, Ethiopia and settle and so on and so forth, and they rejected that, right? They wanted to be a Christian nation and so on and so forth. However, we get to the brother that's talking on the screen right now on our left. Should be on our left. He's from the Gold Coast as well. He says he's a Christian, right? The Muhammad said he's against the Christians in southern Nigeria, but the brother left-hand side said he's Gold Coast and he was prejudiced against all Africans because he dressed, thought, and looked at the world from a Western point of view. And so when he seen his people, he looked down on them, and then he realized that was a problem. Now you have the Caucasian gentleman, right, from South Africa. He gets the Union of South Africa, and he says that his people came to the land. There was no one there, wasn't developed or anything like that, or whatever he says. You're going to hear his argument. He is clearly saying that his people created apartheid to show the people in the area that they need to create things for themselves and not depend on no one else. So apartheid was a tool to teach the South African natives that y'all need to do for selves and create your own institutions and build your own wealth to separate yourselves from us. Let's be clear. He said that. Well, I'm viewing on YouTube. I mean, on YouTube and Facebook. So I'm trying to not say too much, so that what I'm saying, because I'm on Kofi's thing and I don't want to do it. I want to be able to keep the stream in case YouTube blocks it. I want to be able to keep the stream where we have it visible on Facebook and it doesn't go anywhere. It can't be really reported like that because there's no disrespect or anything like that going on. But let's continue. I am going to stop it periodically and just kind of bring people up to speed who may just join in, because there's a lot of people that are popping on right now and are unfamiliar with what we're dealing with right now. So we're dealing with one South African, or European that lives in South Africa. We're dealing with two people from the Gold Coast, one Nigeria, the other one near Ghana, and then one Ethiopian. All right. And they all have stated their prejudices except for our European counterpart in the center.
Let me make this point clear. You say they want the Africans to develop themselves. And so will you allow the Africans to get their own governments and their own representations? Or will you like to give them the rules and the laws by yourselves?
No, we
force them and do everything.
We're not going to force them to do anything.
No, the point is, I know that in South Africa, you have a government. Mm-hmm. And there is not a single African in the government. There are 9 million Africans as against 2 million whites. Why is it that there is not a single African in the government of South Africa?
Well, they're 9 representatives for the...
But I mean, how can 9 Englishmen or 9 Europeans represent 9 million Africans? How can they know their problems and their ideas? These people are Africans. You believe in separateness. The Africans separate and the whites separate. Well, how then can it happen that you get whites representing Africans and ideas since they are separate?
I don't think that is fair either. Since the people in the House of Representatives, do you call it that?
That's right.
They are supported by the taxes paid by the natives, aren't they?
No, just a minute. There, you've gone altogether wrong. If South Africa was to subsist on the taxes that the Bantu in South Africa pay, then South Africa would drop just like that.
Then, okay. What do they support? What supports them?
What?
The House of Representatives, or the people in the government. The
That's the 2.5 million white people that are supporting themselves and the overwhelming black population 12 million black people. It's those 2.5 million to 3 million white people that are supporting the lot.
Could you just explain how they are able to support themselves and how they are able to support?
You mean the white
people?
people?
Yeah, and how they are able to conduct this development without the assistance of the native?
Because they've got the Western idea of working, and they've developed that country.
Oh, I see. They've developed that country through the Africans working. I know that the whites in South Africa went down there because of wealth. It was through the gold rush and all those things that happened that, we got white men in South Africa. And so they went down there purposely to use the Africans as tools for their own benefit. Isn't that?
When the white men went down there, they never even knew a black man existed down there. When the white man landed at the bottom of the Cape in 1652, the black people in South Africa hadn't even moved over the northern boundary of the Union of South Africa.
Yes. I know these people would like to get these sociological ideas just to get around the question. So far as I know, the people in South Africa are a nomadic tribe by career or by profession. They are headsmen who move with their cattle all around the belt. Nowadays, even in the olden days. Okay.
All right. So, again, I see a couple more people popping in. Peace to everybody hopping in the chat. I want you to pay close attention to the exchange. Why? Because he said in 1652, when his people encountered South Africa, there was no one in the land, that the people there wasn't nobody there. So what did they do? Come back when other people started trying to inhabit the land? 1652. Now, I want you to remember this specifically, ladies and gentlemen. This is 1956 here in America when this is taking place. This is being advertised on the news, right? This is recorded. This was broadcasted. So we need to properly understand where we are. And if we've made any progress from then, because in 1956, people knew about apartheid. People knew about the issues in South Africa. Because years later, when we had our whole Black Power movement, our people was speaking out against the injustices of our brothers and sisters on the continent. However, this dude just told us in 1652 that there was no one there.
It might happen that they were living down south, but because of their profession, they happened to live up north. Because in those days, there were warring tribes which were waging wars against each other. And so you cannot say that the land is yours. Everybody knows that Africa is for Africans. And when we think of Africans, we think of blacks. That's how I know. Well,
look, just to give you a short
policy, and you are using the policy of aggressors that the land, the earth belongs to everybody, and the one that is powerful rules the part of the world which is owned by the others. That's the policy that aggressors use.
You know who are the aggressors? It's the African National Congress in Africa. They are the aggressors.
No, how can there be?
If the Africans in Africa would stop being so militant and would rather get down and help and build up South Africa and build up Africa, the problem would cease almost immediately.
Okay, let me ask you this thing.
All right. He told the Nigerian and the Ethiopian that if you would stop being so militant, that certain people would get out of the way. I'm having to stop it. You know what I mean? I know it's getting somewhere. I'm not trying to touch a nerve. I really want us to learn from this. But at the same time, I'm stopping it because I don't want YouTube to discount the actual video. They're already going to hit me with something for copyright so that people can get credit for the video, and stuff like that. So I understand that. But due to the Fair Use Act, we have the ability to learn from this video. We're not monetized, so we don't push the monetization over here for this reason. So we have the ability to be able to play it, but I just don't want it to cut off. And that's why I backed it up with Facebook so that we will have this for people. And I'm going to show you more, not just this conversation. There's another one, and we're going to learn it. We're going to see two different perspectives, right? From 8 people about this whole prejudice debate.
You said if they can come down and help, the problem will cease. The point is, how can they help if you get 9 million Africans and 3 million Europeans, and you get only 9 Europeans representing the interests of these Africans? Do you believe, let me ask you this personal question, do you believe, according to your apartheid policy, in getting 2 South Africans, one South Africa for the Africans and one South Africa for this thing, with 2 different colonial policies and 2 different foreign policies?
No.
If you don't, give me the answer.
Well, I wouldn't be able to give you the definite answer right now.
Why? You believe in separateness. And why don't you believe in getting the Africans separate, having their own government and everything, thereby creating 2 unions of South Africans? That's the point. But that, if so far as you believe in apartheid, it means you believe in separateness. Then keep the Africans separate with their own governments, with their own money, with their own everything, and keep the white separate.
Excuse me, I'll just come in there.
Okay.
He said that if Africans would just calm down and then cooperate with them, the land would be.
I gotta stop it real quick. Oh, I gotta go back in the description and do that, but you're supposed to play a video at the beginning, but if you say it too during the stream, you're supposed to catch. This brother's a Mohammedist. He's from Nigeria, from the northern area. Of course, he's a convert because you can look at his face and see his tribal markings. I paused the video clearly so that everybody can look at this gentleman's face. He has 3 strokes on both cheeks, going toward both cheeks in one direction, and then single stroke, right above that, like running parallel with one another. His markings are running parallel with one another. This brother was not always into Islam, right? He's still rooted in his African traditions, and his face, he's wearing it. But let's see what he says. Let me bag him up. Let me bag him up and let him go.
Africans separate with their own governments, with their own money, with their own everything, and keeps the white separate.
Excuse me, I'll just come in there.
Okay.
He said that if Africans would just calm down and then cooperate with them, the land will achieve peacefulness. Right. Do you mean that the Africans are the people who are really the aggressors against you? You are not really aggressive towards Africans. I mean,
of course not. The general attitude in South Africa, and I come from a country, I know every summer that we have, every holiday at least that I have, I go and spend on the farms, and I live amongst these natives. I really get to know what they do and what they are. Like. The general attitude of the white people in South Africa is sympathetic towards the black people. They regard themselves as the trustees of the.
I mean, why shouldn't they be sympathetic? The point is, I always stress this fact that there are 9 million Africans and 3 million whites.
Exactly. So
if you come to South Africa, there are only 43 Africans with university degrees who are graduates. If you come to the Gold Coast, we have thousands of them. Gold Coast is the black colony, just like South Africa. But we have been able to develop everything, which shows the capability of the African to do anything itself. But we have been able to get all these ideas through the mixture of Western ideas. Actually, we couldn't develop on our own. Until we got British help. And since we got the help, we have been able to do everything ourselves. If you go down to South Africa and help the Africans with your ideas, getting, free mixture of ideas, everything will be okay. But the point is, you use the Africans as tools. You tell them that don't be in this city after 9 o'clock, don't wear this thing, don't do this thing, don't go to America, and the Africans don't go any part apart. Anywhere at all outside the South African Union.
You know, the white people in South Africa aren't allowed in the black areas either after dark.
It's because you created this situation. Why don't get free mixture? You look down on the Africans. That's the point. Am I quite clear? Because you said you believe in separateness, and I want you to come down to this point. You have not answered my question.
Just let me interfere. What's the fundamental cause of all this discrimination in South Africa? The one fundamental cause.
Firstly, because the Bantu in South Africa is not as educated and as highly civilized,
and therefore,
yes,
and therefore
we've got to live with them together in that land. Remember that.
You mean
you people want us to give them equal franchise rights? We give them equal franchise rights within hardly any time whatsoever. The white man in South Africa will have absolutely no say in anything.
But you have been
in this case, you don't have any choice. Suppose now you think that if the society of the white and the society of the blacks is mixed, it will be quite dangerous for you because these people are not as civilized as the white. Exactly. Suppose these people are kept in separation, and you educate them, and the government, I think, believes within the 20 years they will be of the same standard as the white. And this means that you are giving them help mechanically. And unless you mix with them, if they are as good as you, then they will say, get away, who cares for you?
Yeah.
You must realize the fact that they will do so because you were not exchanging ideas for developing these people in terms of friendship.
But that's exactly what we're doing.
No,
The
how
black
can
man
that
and the
be?
white man in South Africa are working together.
No,
There's constant contact between the ministers and the Bantu.
No, but I mean,
Oh, yes.
how can 9 white men get the interest of 9 million Africans? That's the point. If you get the Africans there in the government themselves,
It's not just
they
nine.
can be able.
It's not just 9 men, and it's not the 9 million black people aren't just sitting there waiting for the government to do something for them. They're governing themselves. They got local governments already,
Yes.
and
So,
they're getting
okay.
more and more local government.
Okay, answer
as it
this
is.
question for me. I was asking you a personal question, if you don't mind. The
Okay.
point is, you believe in separateness.
Yes,
You believe that if you keep the Africans separate, entirely separate, and the whites entirely separate, you can be able to live in South Africa.
Again, you mustn't take this idea of separateness or apartheid too literal. It doesn't mean that's fenced around and blacks live there and whites live there.
That's how it is.
Oh no,
If you go to South Africa, tell me this thing. You come near Johannesburg. Africans are not allowed to be in Johannesburg after 9 o'clock. Am I quite clear? Is it true?
No, it's not.
Is it not true?
In Johannesburg after dark,
Yes.
it's just those hooligans that walk around there. After dark, any self-respecting Bantu or white person won't venture out of doors.
Okay. Come to this point.
I
If
believe
you
that
go to
all
the railway
Bantus
station,
are not the same as you think of them. There may be the
I've been
minority,
in contact with them all the time since
Yeah.
I've grown up.
Yeah.
I know what they're like.
but
I'm not-
how far
I'm
does the
not
government
disagreeing.
make use of those who are educated, for example?
They're going back to help educate and uplift their people.
no, they are not going back.
They are.
The point is, you try to educate these Africans to go back and help the people. But
Exactly.
that is where I tell you that there are only 43 Africans with university degrees. How can these 43 Africans go back with their Western ways and Western everything to this African society and help the people? The people will not understand them because you are turning back to primitivism in South Africa. And so when these people go down to the Africans don't, I mean, as it were,
Look
I
at
mean, get them nicely.
you're always talking about you can't learn to swim unless you get into the water.
Yeah.
Well, you can't start educating them unless you send those that are educated
No,
back
you
to
ought
their.
to start educating them. I mean, for the 300 years that South Africa has existed, we have been in the Gold Coast with Western contact for only 100 years. But if you come to the Gold Coast now, we are able to do everything ourselves. We are, I mean, at present, I'm sitting down equally with
You can't. It's absolutely unrealistic and stupid to compare South Africa with the Gold Coast.
Yes.
There's absolutely no comparison.
No,
whatsoever.
but basically we are all African.
Just let me finish.
No.
In South Africa, at least in the Gold Coast, there has never been enough white men there to constitute the nationhood.
Yeah.
If the Gold Coasters at any time wanted to drive him out, and they drove him out, those white men have got England for their homeland. We in
The only
South
thing I
Africa
know,
haven't got our
is
homeland,
according
oh
to
boy.
the partition of Africa.
So, he just made a point that if the Europeans in West Africa were driven out, they got England to go back as their homeland. That he doesn't have a homeland, but genetically speaking, he actually does, Europe, because they traveled there. How do we know that they traveled there? Because when the pandemic transpired, they went to Europe, and when they came back to Europe, a whole new variant developed because of the people that was in Europe, called the South African strand, B117. I had to do that. But I want us to learn, listen, and learn. This was literally 60 years ago. You know what I mean? 60 plus years ago. This is not too far back.
Africa and the scramble for Africa in 1884, all the white men came to Africa and they settled at the places which suit them best, according to health. If you go to South Africa, the climate is Mediterranean in certain places, so you see white men there. If you go to East Africa, it is tropical, but because of the highlands, I mean, it's relatively cooler, and so you see white men there. That's why you get the mama in East Africa. In the Gold Coast, it is jungle, mosquitoes and everything, and so the white men don't like to live in the Gold Coast.
I knew a video was gonna come. why you got to be prepared.
And excuse me, Navy, and Dix, I want to ask you this. Dix just said that there weren't enough white men in the Gold Coast. Would your point of view be that believing in separateness, you've kept yourself so separated from the white men in the Gold Coast that maybe your standard of living has...
No, ma'am. We were just keeping, side by side with them. I tell you at first that if you come to the Gold Coast, through the contact with the whites, we have been able to develop. We can never develop on our own. That's the point. But we got Western ways and Western ideas and Western help. That's why we are, as equal to the whites now.
I suppose.
See, I have a problem with his perspective here, the Gold Coast brother, because he feels like that he wouldn't be able to develop anything on his own. This is his train of thought. So he's saying we accept the European and we live alongside them, although there's not a lot of them. We live alongside them because we wouldn't be able to develop what we could without them. So mentally, psychologically, it's a dependent thing. It's a dependent thing, right? He adopted their ways, traditions, and culture, perspective, and outlook. He admitted it when he opened his mouth. He said it when he opened his mouth. He said he had a westernized point of view, perspective, dress, and he looked down on his own fellow Africans. He had prejudices against his own people, right? And now he says he couldn't be able to do it on his own. That's far from the truth. How do you get the great, some great civilizations out of Africa if it couldn't be done? Now, granted, our ancestors didn't advance technologically as other people and develop that. You know what I mean? That was an issue, but you don't get iron smelting and things of that nature. Oh man, this is. Yeah, it is, Sutek. But let's get back to it. We got 11 minutes and 17 seconds of this, and I'm gonna let this get through, and then I really want to get this other point out. But like I said, we're here to learn. Like, what purpose is this serving? Hopefully, at the end of these two-part discussion, we have some type of sense of purpose.
It's a different case with countries in West Africa. You see, we in West Africa, we were brought under the British rule, but you can't compare that with the South Africa, because the white went there to live and not to bring these people to a higher standard of living and to educate them and bring and allow them to realize the full significance of civilization.
The Africans, they are the citizens. If they are citizens, why deny them these rights?
We're not denying them the rights.
Let me ask Mohamedou another question. You said at the beginning that you were Mohammedan, that Nini was Christian, that you had some prejudices against Christians.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a fairly frank question. Do you have any sense that Nini from the Gold Coast is less purely African than you are?
Yeah, I often feel that.
Why?
You see, we in Nigeria, and our part of Nigeria, northern Nigeria, we often feel that Africa is for Muslims, not for Christians. It's meant for Muslims. And our social life is entirely different from the Western ways. We are totally opposed to it because it sort of try to disassociate our religious principles.
We were talking a moment ago about discrimination between white and black. Suppose Nini comes to visit you in Nigeria. Would he be discriminated against in any way? I
suppose so, simply because for one reason. So we eat in a bowl. In my home, we put a big bowl down, and you have about 3 or 4 people putting their hands all at the same time into the bowl.
There is a competition.
And you see, we don't allow Christians to interfere. We don't allow Christians to put their hands inside. You see, it's one of our religious doctrines. We don't allow. We're not supposed to eat with Christians in the same bowl unless we're obligated to. And so that's one of the things which we...
On this question of religion, I'd like to ask you one more thing. I've heard it said recently that Islam is gaining rapidly in Africa and Christian influence is declining. Is that true?
I wouldn't say definitely it is not true, but to some extent it is. You see, there are two sides to it. We have the Ahmadiyya movement in Nigeria. They come from Pakistan, and I think it originated about 1885. I don't know.
I wonder if Nini would agree with you that Christianity is on the way.
I disagree with him. The point is, Muslim teaches purely African, principles. That's the case. They had the Mohammedan influence in Africa, around about West Africa, in about 1,000 years ago. About some few centuries ago. But Christianity came down in Africa about 200 years ago. And through Christian influence, we are able to adopt Western ways of life and Western everything. And so more people like to adopt Christianity, whereby they try to become Western. Because most of the missionaries who come down there are Americans or Englishmen. And people like to follow the style because of singing and everything, because African likes music. So
but you wouldn't say a person joins a religion simply because he finds it very easy or because he finds that he can conform his social customs to it.
No.
You follow it because you understand that it is a true religion and your spiritual understandings agree with it.
No, what I'm trying to say is, I'm not saying that Western ideas are best to the African. I believe in African getting everything African. But the point is, we know and everybody knows that if you get some things African, they are sometimes bad. So I believe in getting Western ideas. And through Christianity, we are able to teach the people decent ways of life and different everything. For instance, Mohammedan.
Through Christianity, we're able to teach people a decent way of life, a decent everything. And watch what he says behind this, ladies and gentlemen. See, this is the psychological game that's being played, right? We're confused here. First, we were dealing with the South African guy and his perspective on how apartheid works, right? And now we're face to face with one another. Someone on the Gold Coast and someone from northern Nigeria are now in confrontation because of religious differences, one a Christian, one a Muslim. And look at how the conversation changed when the interpreter or the lady changes the topic, because it was centered around all three of them was having a conversation with the South African guy.
Christians will not eat with the Christians, which is bad. It doesn't bring peace to the world. But through Christianity, we are able to teach pure love and love for everything.
But
so more Africans like.
Haven't you heard me? I said, if you
of Christianity, there are Orthodox Christians who don't allow to mix with Mohammedans. For example, I belong to a real Orthodox Christian religion known as the Copts, and there it says that its origin, of course, from Judaism also. It says that the animal must be properly slaughtered before you eat it, and if a Mohammedan has already slaughtered a sheep or a cow, for example, I will not eat with him.
I'm sure there are infinite prejudices in your country alone between Amharas and Hebrews and Arabs. You do say your origin is Hebrew, do you not? And most of the Ethiopians are. We could talk for ages on that, but there's another question I want very much to ask all of you. That is, what had you heard about race problems in America before you came? Is our problem greater or less than you thought?
I thought it was greater before I came. Because of the nationalistic feelings in the Gold Coast, everybody is prejudiced against the whites because we want to get the best positions in the government. Apparently, we have it though. But in the olden days, we wanted to get them. And so we were always constant on the point to listen to some of these things which happen in America. About 70% of the news about America are concerning racial prejudice.
Is that true in the Gold Coast, Dick? How much news, American news, is concerned? I'm sorry, in South Africa.
Well, very little. Except the case like the recent Supreme Court case comes up, then that receives attention in the South African newspapers. But we realize what the position is here in the States, and we got a problem much, much bigger than ours back home.
Was our problem greater than you thought it would be, or less?
No, I think it's bigger than I thought it would be. Because, well, I imagined when I came over here that all the Negroes were as well educated as the white people. And, well, that's not always the case, especially down south. And then I didn't expect to find them as concentrated in the south as they are.
Have any of you had any experiences with segregation here in this country?
Well, I've just got something quite insignificant. People get to know that I'm a foreigner, and so they treat me differently. When I came at first, I tried to get an American haircut, appear in American clothes as best as possible and as much as possible, just for people to discriminate against me. And I've never had such an occasion. I've been trying to get it, but it seems as if I've been getting the best.
In 1990,
Much friendliness.
Yes,
huh?
ma'am.
How about you, Navy?
This is rather superficial, but I was living in one of the communities in New Jersey, which is strictly white residents, and there I couldn't get a haircut for about 2 weeks because the white man don't know how to cut this type of hair. And one of the boys was joking to me that he said that the best engineers in the United States are working hard to design an instrument that will be of some use to cut this hair.
Then that's not discrimination.
Well, it is another sort of discrimination because United States is a business country, and if they discourage their customers by means of types of hair, then they are defeating their own purpose.
I found a little bit of segregation, forms of segregation at any rate. And that is, while I was speaking to residents in New Jersey, while they were teachers, and they told me that although it's officially prohibited by law, there are what they call gentlemen's agreements, whereby a Negro cannot obtain land or buy property in a white man's area. Then, on the other hand, I found that on the whole, the Negroes are not as economically sound as the white men are. And then too, in the recent case where Negro and white schools have been integrated, the Negro teachers have lost their jobs.
See, let's come to this point. You said they are not economically sound as the white men. The point is, in America, for instance, if you get much education, you get better pay, better job. If you deny the Negro opportunities to go to college, how do you expect them to get better qualifications, to occupy the better jobs, and get better pay for the houses? That's the point. I'm now getting some of these facts from the papers. I every day read about the problem which is happening down in Alabama, and I see quite a lot of those things. Those are some of the experiences of segregation that I've seen in America now. Obviously, I can take back some of these ideas with me, but they are just insignificant. As I said at first, I've met with friendliness in America, but in certain aspects too, I see some of these things, you see. That's the point. Think of the education first. I believe in education.
Do you know something? In South Africa, last year, we spent $42 million on educating the Bantu there, and 3/4 of that was paid by the white people.
He was finna say that. He was finna hit us with the N-word. He called himself and then called him Bantu. You know what I'm saying? He keeps saying that. They spent $42 million on educating the Bantu. Let's get to it. Let's get to it.
40% of the Bantu school children are going to school. And the literacy rate in the Union of South Africa now amongst the Bantu is 27.7. And within the next 20 years, it'll be 100% literacy.
Why is it that? Why is it that you have not got a delegate who is African for the whole year that you have been operating this forum? I'm sure that next year, a white man is going to come here as a delegate for the Union of South Africa, though there are 9 million South Africans who are Africans. So don't think of this thing as something like literacy. I know that the literacy rate in South Africa is 16%. But
no,
27%. But the point is, the Africans just get the elementary education in the African quarters, which is fit for nothing but unskilled labor.
To sum up a little bit, Nini, what's the best thing your government can do, the most significant thing to help attack this problem?
At present, we are not yet fully self-governed. We do everything ourselves in the government. But the last one is defense and external affairs. Great Britain is controlling this. And the moment we become independent, we can prove to the outside world that the African can rule himself and the black can govern himself. And so
what
I think that's
your government, Dick?
The government must definitely apply this policy of apartheid more firmly and more thoroughly, and apply it and carry it out more rapidly than it's done in the future.
There's a final question I'd like to ask you. Since the population of the world, the percentage between white and non-white is roughly what it is here, I'm sure Dix and I are wondering when the 3/4 of the human race that is not white gets political power. What are you going to do to the whites? Segregate them?
Well, if we practice segregation, then we will be as bad as the white. So what we will do is we'll allow them to mix with us, and in the meantime, unite ourselves like that we did in the Down Conference.
Well, listen, when Mr. Good Marshall, the attorney to Miss Lucy, when he came down from Alabama to New York, this is what he said. He said that sometimes Negro organizations and individual Negroes, through their help to save the white man's soul, become a little bit tired. So I think probably that's our mission.
To save the white man's
yeah,
soul.
to save the white man's soul.
Thank you, Nini. I'm sorry that's all the time we have. Thank you all. Next week.
Grammarly does more.
All right, so real quick, before we get into the second part of the discussion, let's talk about that. Well, I don't know. You really don't have to talk about it at all, but I was reading some of the comments on the YouTube channel, and I noticed that there was some type of responses, right? So what do y'all think about that conversation, right? Like, how does that make you feel? Learning, remember, this is a learning experience. So how does that make you feel to see that this actually transpired and this conversation was had, and it started off so wrong, and then every element that could come into play at that particular point of time came into play in the middle of a conversation where you had three people with with four people with different perspectives, with three people with a common dislike, and then all of a sudden it separated itself based on belief. Darren, okay. So it's kind of craziness. So nobody really have anything to say about that? All right, so we're gonna get into the next video then. I know it's a little delay, so I was trying to give people an opportunity to be able to get that off. And then I was gonna transition. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come back to the other. Now remember how it was very much miseducation. But remember how the video started, right? When the South African began to speak. Remember what he said. There was nobody in South Africa, and then all of a sudden they people came, and then all of a sudden they encountered and dealt with the Bantu. Remember all of that. It's intricate here. So let's get into what I had Sutek watch earlier.
Americans prejudiced in their opinions about Africa?
The most certainly are. How could they be objective about African Negroes while they are prejudiced against American Negroes?
I disagree with you completely. I think that Americans are prejudiced for African natives and are very prejudiced against white people in Africa.
Well, I'm getting confused. How can Americans be for and against Africans at the same time?
Well, if I say anything, I'm going to confuse you still more. As an Ethiopian, I'm prejudiced against both white people and Negroes.
Okay, discussion are four high school students from four different countries in Africa. Let me introduce them to you now. Here is Amelia Day from the Gold Coast. Amelia is 18 years old. Here is Susan Rennie from the Union of South Africa. Susan is 17. Susan, those school uniforms, are they always that short?
No, this is actually dispensation. I'm a senior, but the other girls have to have them 3 inches above the knee.
Very interesting study in native costumes. Thank you. Now let me introduce the boys, will you? Here are our baby for tonight, 15-year-old Nestin Venega from Ethiopia, and 16-year-old Boniface Opakaja from Nigeria. Now, let's start out by asking you what some of your own prejudices are. How about you, Amelia? Have you got any prejudices, say, against the Nigerians?
Yeah, I have my own personal prejudice against the Nigerians. Coming from the Gold Coast, where there are many Nigerians, I think that I sometimes look down on the Nigerians as somewhat inferior to us. Because, you see, the Nigerians who come to the Gold Coast are mostly beggars. So that's my opinion about Nigerians.
This is funny. I don't see how you have a case against for this your proposition, or I say for this your stand. Actually, personally, I look towards the Gold Coast not as inferiors, but perhaps as people that are individualistic, are not working towards
the Commonwealth effort towards the welfare of the nation. They, of course, have made great strides because they are a very small country and yet have all these differences in their country.
Nesbin, how about your prejudices? You admitted to several at the beginning.
Well, as I told you before, we have also our own prejudices against the African Negroes. We consider them as inferior. We have, of course, our own reasons for saying so.
What are they, Nesbin?
Well, first thing, we consider ourselves to be of the lost tribe of Israel and not Negroes. It's only that our faces are burned that we look like Negroes. And also, we've been ruling part of Africa for hundreds of years during the 16th century, and we ruled part of Egypt, Sudan, and as far down as Mozambique.
Well, what about your prejudices against white men?
Well, back home, if a woman marries a white man, she's considered mean, and when she dies, the priests never pray for her as they would do for any ordinary man. It's just considered as suicide.
Why do you think they look down on the white people so much?
Well, for the first reason, religiously they consider them unclean in heart because they eat pork, and that's prohibited in religion.
Susan, you got any prejudices?
All right, so before Susan speaks, I think it's quite interesting that we got the Nigerian. He admits his prejudices and he points them in a direction. The Gold Coast sister, she admits her prejudices and she says she looks down on Nigerians because the people that she knows to come from Nigeria are normally beggars. We got the Ethiopian brother who says he's prejudiced against Negroes and whites. He says he's neither a Negro. He's from the lost tribe, right? That's what he says. He believes he's one of the brothers from the lost tribe. Now, that Ethiopian compared to the last Ethiopian that we heard on the show have said some of the same things about them being members of a lost tribe. But the first Ethiopian was not like this brother. You know what I mean? He came out and he says, the more I've been in America, the more I feel like an actual nigga. So he really didn't hold up to the same, bias principle or have that same worldview as this Ethiopian brother that may be. So now we're getting ready to hear Susan. Everybody meet Susan. Susan meet everybody. We heard the last gentleman on the show, and his perspective from South Africa was kind of, he started off with like fake history, right? Pseudo history. Let's see what Susan says.
Oh, I think I've got some pretty large prejudices. I think I'm very prejudiced against the foreign press, particularly the American press, because I've come up against a lot of discrimination myself while I've been here. As a South African, everywhere I go, particularly in the schools, at the moment I mention that I'm from South Africa, I'm discriminated against in the sense that, the picture in South Africa, the situation has been so badly distorted and so exaggerated because racial news is sensational news. And so journalists have so distorted the picture in South Africa that when I come over here, I'm looked down upon. And I've really felt this discrimination. I haven't been treated as just an individual and a human being. And I feel that the press is responsible for this.
Well, I've been wanting to ask you a question for a long time. When we all came here, you just took to me. You like me very much, I can see, and I like you. But I know you are a South African, and I'm an African. But why is it that out here you are very friendly towards me, but down in South Africa, you don't do the same towards the Negroes that are living there? Can you tell me?
Well, it's the whole setup. I mean, South Africa, we have a pattern of life which is different to any other country in the world, because you have the white population, and which came to the country in 1652, and they are much more highly developed, coming from Europe with European backgrounds and traditions, and they have developed the country and developed a highly civilized community, whereas the Negroes, the Bantu as we call them in Africa, in South Africa, is primitive, on a very primitive level. And the barrier in South Africa isn't so much color as civilization.
You heard her. She said that the Bantu or the Negro in South Africa was primitive. And they came down from Europe, better, more civilized, and built a great civilization unlike any other country in the world. She said those things. This is Susan. And I'm going to play it back because I really don't think some of y'all caught what was going on.
You just took to me. You like me very much, I can see, and I like you. But I know you are a South African, and I'm an African. But why is it that out here you are very friendly towards me, but down in South Africa, you don't do the same towards the Negroes that are living there? Can you tell me?
Well, it's the whole setup. I mean, South Africa, we have a pattern of life which is different to any other country in the world. Because you have the white population, and which came to the country in 1652, and they are much more highly developed, coming from Europe with European backgrounds and traditions, and they have developed the country and have developed a highly civilized community, whereas the Negro, the Bantu as we call them in Africa, in South Africa, is primitive on a very primitive level. And the barrier in South Africa isn't so much color as civilization and economically.
Excuse me, on that point, we get into a very, very tense ground recently. You talked about this question of it not being a racial struggle, but a struggle of civilization. Well, personally, you see, I sympathize with your situation. Because I couldn't live in a country, your economic position, and perhaps your future well-being as a nation might be in danger if you allow the strong-hearted, driving Africans to take over the government. That is, of course, what will happen if they're given the vote. Nonetheless, let us come now to that basic issue of racial segregation. I hear this honorable gentleman is from Ethiopia. I think it's high time Ethiopians come to the side where exactly they are. I usually wonder, are you Negro? You are not Negro. You say you're not Negro. Are you white? You're not white. What are you?
Well, I told you the answer. We are not Negroes. We are one of the lost tribes of Israel. It's just because our faces are burned that we look like
I brought the point, you are lost. I think that makes a conclusive answer.
That boy said because his skin is burnt is the reason why they look like Negroes.
I'm wondering if Susan and Meston have something very much in common. Neither one of you admit you're Africans, and yet both of you live in Africa and have for generations.
Other groups have actually originated in Africa, but I consider South Africa my homeland, my fatherland, and I always will. And there is a misconception that exists. Most people think that the white settlers came to South Africa and took the land from people who oh no, it is not, and I'll prove it to you, who came to South Africa and took it away as the whites came here to America and took it away from the indigenous occupants. In 1652, when the first white settlers arrived at the Cape, the Bantu, as they are now known, the Negroes in South Africa, were still coming down from equatorial Africa, migrating. And it's a fact that they had not yet entered what is now known as South Africa, the borders of South Africa. The only indigenous occupants in Africa, South Africa at that time, were the Bushmen, and they were exterminated by the Bantu coming down.
Susan.
Did y'all hear her? This is what they are teaching them in South Africa. That the Europeans came down in 1652 inhabited the land. There was no one there, but the Sand people and the Bantu ran them off. And they brought culture, civilization, and peace to the land. This is what they were teaching them in 1956, 1957. This is a year later. The last video was a year earlier. This is a year later from that video. And she has the same exact historical perspective as the other South African representative in this discussion. All right, I see it's getting so well, so let's cook.
On that point, I think you've read your history upside down.
How come?
Yes, you see, the exact thing that happened was that these Dutch men, I think they were Dutch men, they haven't got a place in their homeland.
Oh,
Not
no.
a means of living.
I can just
Let
prove,
me finish.
all right, and then I can prove you how wrong your historical facts are.
Oh, no, you know, your history is South African history. Mine is a bipartisan history. Well, this man came without any means of livelihood in their own country, with the economic background, without any meaning at all. They came to South Africa. And the real fact is that as they came and there was an influx of these Dutch people from their unwanted homes, as there was an influx, the Bantus tended to were pushing the Bantus up into the country, till came the Zulu War, in which the Zulus were finally defeated in the most bitter and agonizing struggle they had against this African. Yes.
I don't know where you get your historical facts from. I really
I
don't.
get my historical fact from, I think, is it Mr. Trevelyan? He's from British history.
Oh,
That's far
Mr.
better
George
than.
Trevelyan knows nothing then, and I'll say that. Because it so happens that these penniless whites, as you call them, didn't come out because they didn't have homes or because of any kind of persecution. They were sent out as officials of the Dutch East India Company to establish a refreshment station.
The Dutch Royal Institute were a part of the slave trade. The people that she just mentioned, the Dutch, they were a part, like the Royal African, what was the Royal African Society? I might be saying it wrong, man. I got too much on my brain. But the other slave trading company, you had the Dutch and then you had the Royal African Society, right? They both were in the slave trade. If you look it up, you'll see the symbols. If you remember anything from what previous presentations we done on the slave trade a couple of years ago, and I think last year or 2 years ago, I think New Black Knowledge did some information talking about the Dutch trading company, showed the flag and showed all of that over here in America. It's essential to understand what's going on here. She mentions the Dutch. They were part of the slave trade. We know how they got there. We know when they came there. How is this absent from her education?
For ships passing around passing around the bottom of the Cape, just as the Dutch settlers were sent out to America by the Dutch West India Company to settle and to make a refreshment station here. Now, I think if you had to turn around to those Dutch settlers who came out and said that they came out because they were penniless, they'd be just as indignant as I am. And as you say that the white settlers came and pushed the Bantu back,
Yes.
It's a fact that the whites went into the interior of Africa and didn't come into contact never even saw a Bantu until 1795, which was practically 100 years, more than 100 years after they had arrived in South Africa.
They never seen, they went into the interior and never seen a Bantu in 1700s. See, she didn't know that we actually have the primary sources. See, she didn't know that they actually had journals, right? These enslavers, the Portuguese and so on and so forth, they were documenting going into the interior. Especially in the 1700s, they was cocky with it by then because they were conquering people using guns, machine guns. Everything crazy. Let's continue. Yeah, you're right. Former. My bad. Former.
How did you have the Zulu War? What brought it about?
The Zulus had already, by the time, I think you must can have a look at a map. Zululand is very far from the Cape where these people arrived. And in 100 years, within 100 years, after the arrival of the white settlers, the Zulus had by that time, the Zulus are a part of the Bantu group, had already come down to Natal. And then you've got the two groups, the one coming from the north, the one coming from the south, and they met. And that's where you get the Zulu War.
It was not even a clash in the sense you are taking it. It was even the British.
It was a clash.
The British in their benevolence, or in fact in their, because they've seen the facts that this thing is not good, they even were exercising a tempering force upon the people.
Boniface, just to make things more complicated for you and Susan, I've heard a third interpretation of this, which might settle it. That was the fact that the Bantu were a migratory people. And that it may be true that at some point when the whites came in, there weren't any Bantus there because they were migrating somewhere else. But look, this is all past history now. I'd like to hear some.
Now, you hear the moderator interject, and she basically tried to bag Susan up. Susan gets excited. She said the Bantu, they were a migratory people, so therefore, I heard a history that said that the Bantu people were migratory people, and they wasn't in the area when they came into South Africa. This is the problem, right? This is what we got into: research, history, correcting history, refuting misinformation, trying to move our people forward. I don't think y'all catch where I'm going yet. This is the why, right? It's bigger than me. It's bigger than me. There is a whole perspective and agenda that sits before us that will misinform, mislead, and miseducate our babies. And this is proof positive. This goes back to the question that I wrote in the Killmonger's Corner Volume 1. What will history say about us when, about this era when it is written? If we don't do the writing, they can make up whatever they want to about us in this time, in this era, in this moment. What will history say about us in our moment? Who's going to write it? Susan? Joseph? Let's continue.
Something from Mesfin and Amelia on their interpretation of South African history, but almost rather. Let's bring it up to the present, can't we?
Yes, we bring it up.
Well, come back just a minute, Sue, to your violent prejudices against the press because they're misrepresenting what goes on in South Africa. Do you want to clarify that a bit?
Yes, I would.
Will you?
No. Well, I know one outstanding example of misrepresentation. We read in an American, I think it was a magazine, I won't give the name, although I could very easily. This journalist quoted Dr. D.F. Malan, who is an ex-Prime Minister of South Africa, as saying, and I quote, "The Negro does not need a home. He can sleep under a tree." Well, not only is this absolutely fictitious, but he forgot to mention the fact that brick and concrete trees, known to most people as houses, are costing thousands, millions of dollars of the white taxpayers' money annually.
What did you say? I didn't get the point. Said what houses?
Well, you see, this journalist said that Dr.
Yes,
Malan,
I got that point. You say what houses costing the government millions of dollars?
I
what
said
houses?
Concrete and brick and cement houses for the Bantu peoples.
But these are the Bantus that are working for you in the factories. How did you get the money? They got the money. They mined the gold, got the gold, and you sold the gold outside. You got the money and you say the money is yours.
Of course
you can't
it
do
is.
That's a contradiction,
Look,
please.
we came along. We bought the machinery. We developed the mines.
From where did you get the machinery from the mines in Johannesburg? Do you own the mines?
We got
Who
our
owned the
machinery.
mines?
We got our machinery from Great Britain.
Who
From
owned-
the money that was got were the diamonds. And
how did you get the diamonds out of the ground?
No native labor there.
How did you get the diamonds out of the ground?
They weren't dug out of the ground. They were alluvial diamonds. No native labor there, my boy.
What do the natives do? You know.
She said, no native labor there, my boy. The cockiness of Susan. She talks down on him, and he ain't letting it up. He's putting up a fierce argument against her. Susan is all the way out of pocket. She immediately thinks that her way is the right way. We all know how they got to South Africa. We all know how they got enriched. They were a part of the slave trade. We know how they got the tools there, right? We know this. Who's working the mines? They're not working the mines, but she seems to have a problem with them saying it's costing taxpayers money for building those tree huts and brick homes.
What, Suzanne, what's more, one point you must get right down to the crux of the matter is that in this country, the Africans are really the backbone of your economy. And it is one of that cases where you get this question of man seeing humanity to man. And every day you come here to complain about misrepresentation on the American press. In the actual matter of fact, the American press is giving a fairly good view of the whole situation because they have a color problem themselves.
Have you been to South Africa?
I wouldn't even pay a penny to go there.
Well, then, how can you talk? How can you talk?
Because I have the facts. People come in there, get people no means of living. How can I go there? I want a house, I want a home, I want position in society.
Well, look, they're getting it. They're getting exactly what.
I'd love to hear from Amelia and Mesfin what their picture, if their picture of South Africa is the same as Boniface's.
It should be the same weight.
Well, coming from Africa myself, naturally I would be a little embittered against the whites in South Africa because from what we hear, they are mistreating the Africans there. But personally, I have no preconceived ideas against the whites because, frankly, I haven't been there, and you can't always trust what you hear from people or what you read from the press. So I have no solid facts about South African problems.
Actually, I myself am against the South Africans because I mean the white people in the South Africa, because in whose house can one come and take away the property? Because what they are doing now, the white people are mining and taking the property for themselves, and that's what they shouldn't do. Because the native people who are living there, they should have what is the property of theirs. Well, actually, before I came from Ethiopia, I was reading about this in the press, and they were pretty hot about it. They were against the white people. The same thing could happen to them, of course.
On this oppression business, if you say the Bantu in South Africa oppressed, how do you account for this fact that every year, regularly, hundreds of thousands of Bantu and Negroes from other territories adjoining South Africa, such as Portuguese, East Africa, etc., are invading our country illegally in spite of the law?
We've gone.
Are they coming for oppression? They know what.
She said that the Negro Bantu is coming to South Africa illegally. Illegally, ladies and gentlemen. As if South Africa isn't an African country, right? Like it wasn't Africans on the country before. Now notice, if you noticed anything, that when the sister spoke, she said she's African. And she made a distinction when she referred to South Africa, because what she's saying about South Africans, they ain't the same as Africans. So when we're sitting here, we're knowing that our brothers and sisters are tribal and they have their own countries and things of that nature. The sister in 1957 clearly, and the other brothers, even on the last bill, specifically stated Africans. They made a separate, we're Africans and this person is a South African, to say that there's a clear distinction with this person that's in South Africa. They ain't the same as the people that inhabited the actual continent. But let me go.
what goes on in South Africa, and they come back year and year again. Those who have worked in South Africa and have been sent back, come back. Are they coming back to seek oppression?
This does not answer what I'm driving at. The Africans have the land. They were
no,
there
they
before
do not
you.
have the land, and
They
they were
mine
not
the
there
gold.
before us.
All right, wait a minute, Susan. Let me get my point straight before you go. They mine the lands. They get the diamonds. You sell the diamonds outside, and when you get the diamonds, you say they are not to be given their own fair share of the quota. Have you read "Cry of the Beloved Country"?
Yes, I have. It's a one-sided view.
One-sided view, and it was written by an European. How could Europeans be having one-sided view about their own
They're
king?
radicals in every nation.
Radicals? You are radicals in South Africa, then?
Oh, no, we're not.
Look, Mesfin was just talking about, and all of you, about the importance of news about South Africa in the Gold Coast, in Nigeria, and in Ethiopia. I'm wondering whether news about racial problems in the United States also takes up a good deal of space in your countries. Does it in the Gold Coast?
Yes, very, because after all, the Negroes come from the Gold Coast, and we feel very badly about what the Americans are doing to our Negroes. I know that one of my ancestors probably came here too, and from what I hear in the Gold Coast, the Americans don't give the Negroes a fair chance of activities here. For instance, they don't give the Negroes the same education as they give their white Americans. And also, for instance, a Negro wouldn't be permitted to go to ride on the same bus with a white man. As for me, I don't think that color, which is purely a natural thing, can be such a great bar to human understanding. And I think America is a democratic nation, as it calls itself. But this one thing really doesn't show it all very well as a democratic country.
Amelia, you've been in the New York area for about a month now. Does the picture you had of America that you've just described correspond to what you've seen here in the schools and the communities you've been in?
Well, when I came up here, most of the people in New York told me that segregation is only practiced in the South, but in the North, they have now begun to have integration. Well, I didn't think much about it. But one day after school, I went to a restaurant with a friend of mine, and she's an English girl. And we sat there and waited to be served by a waiter. Well, the waiter just came around, looked at us and passed us and went around serving others who came in after us. Well, I knew at once what he was doing, but my friend didn't know it. So she walked up to the waiter and said, "Well, we've been waiting here so long, won't you serve us?" The waiter just looked at her hard and then looked back at me. And then I told the girl that we better leave the restaurant because I understood it. But the girl was shocked, but I wasn't surprised because that was what I was expecting to find. And
how about
Americans,
you, Mesfin?
Well, in my country...
No, I mean your experience with segregation here. Have you had any?
Well, when I came to America, I was in Dwightmore High School, and I went for a haircut in the city. I looked up for a barber shop. I went there, and they told me they were busy. I went to a second one. The same thing happened, and to a third one, too.
How about Dwightmore? Are there any Negro students there?
Well, there are quite a lot of them. In fact, about 3/4 Negroes in the school. And they are well treated as the other white people, and I'm happy about it. In fact, one of the vice presidents of the school is a Negro himself, Linton Marsh.
How about you, Boniface? Have you met segregation at all here?
Have not met it. I think the most pretty lucky, because I've been looking forward to get the segregation against me, but have not got it yet. It's an irony that the South African will get it and I wouldn't get it myself.
Well, Susan really has felt some here. It's interesting that you're the only one who has not. Yes?
What are we after now? I think we'll come back to this question of I think it was the United States racial problems. Well, I feel, of course, that the outlook here has continued to be better.
You do?
I do. But on the other hand, this racial segregation, which of course I do, and I'll always make that point clear, is an outcrop of insecurity in economic conditions, and also somehow low-pointed opinions and all that sort of thing. Provides other people with that same pretext by which they could criticize the United States. Asians and Africans can't understand why a country devoted to the greatest ideals of freedom and democratic government should discriminate among their citizens.
We didn't get to ask Sue whether in South Africa her newspapers play up racial news in America too.
Oh, yes, they played up a great deal. Well, naturally, we get all these stories about the riots at Clinton, Tennessee, and how they had to escort these people to school and bring out the National Guard and so on and so forth.
Mrs. Waller, if I may interpret, I think there are more rats in the Johannesburg area, in the Negro area, than there are in Tennessee. Am I right, Susan?
Oh, well, there are a couple of
rats, yes.
No, I wouldn't say riots.
And wait a minute, in the Johannesburg area, you have only one telephone to the whole Negro population.
Oh, rubbish.
Yes.
Where do you get your facts from?
Facts from books written on countable times on South Africa.
Why aren't you the landlord?
Well, that's
absolutely
ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous.
Absolutely true.
I'll get this for you afterwards. There are not. I can.
All right, let me finish my question. Let me finish my statement, please. No, one telephone.
Prejudice with so much ignorance.
One telephone in the whole Johannesburg district. Why? They don't want the Africans to have a means of communication by which they could rebel against the people. I'm speaking from facts. John Gunter wrote that.
That's absolutely ridiculous. And
ridiculous.
I think if you try and...
Oh, you didn't say it was wrong. It is ridiculous.
It's not wrong. It's wrong. It is wrong.
Ridiculous, but not wrong.
That is no fact.
If you have got your facts from one-sided...
it's not one-sided, Mesfin. It's not
it
one-sided.
should be, because what you've got is almost all what you've got.
All right.
Look,
I can give you 4 concurrent. John Gunter wrote that. An African newspaper in Nigeria wrote that. A British paper wrote that. A Lebanese paper wrote that. All the world prejudice against
you
South
can't
Africa.
so much criticize the country without actually going there and seeing what is happening, you see.
I don't need to go there. I told you I wouldn't pay penny to go there. How can I go
we
there?
have come to America and we are looking what they are doing in America. We might have got false ideas of America.
In America, the outlook has continued to be better. In South Africa, the outlook has continued to be worse.
Well,
that exactly, Mesfin.
As a matter of fact, we are progressing.
Wait a minute, Susan. That exactly, Mesfin, is what, Susan, I think you better take care about this. When these Africans come to learn that they are really being discriminated, I mean, they're learning now. And when they rise, you know what has been imposed upon the people by law, or what has been suppressed when you get the people really suppressed. When they rise, they shall throw away that same government. And you are,
well, let me look. You've had your speak. I'm going to have mine now. It so happens that this apartheid, which you most probably have misinterpreted already.
No, you misinterpreted.
Just a minute, let me speak. Is working towards a solution in South Africa, and it so happens that there will be no riots, nothing like that. This apartheid policy, which I will afterwards speak to you about, seeing I think there's only very little time, is working towards getting self-realization and self-rights for the black people within their own areas. And I think if you make a careful study of apartheid, you'll see, and already they've started legislating in South Africa and spending vast sums of money. Within the next 20 years, we're going to have a solution to our problems.
I've spent 15 years learning it, and every day I become more prejudiced against South Africa. I don't need to spend a day more. And
I think you're getting your facts from the wrong source.
Not from the wrong source, please. You're getting your facts from the government laid out principles and practices.
Well, I live there. I ought to know.
I don't want to live there.
You live 7,000 miles away. How can you know?
That's not better. I have a home. I have a house. I can walk anywhere I have.
Reading propaganda.
Unfortunately, our time is running out. I'm wondering if anybody's got a final word to say on the subject of prejudice, where they come from.
Yes.
Well, folks, I understand I'm becoming an African, I suppose. Well, and I think, Susan, I'm sure that government policies sometimes conflict, because you and I get on so well together, and I'm sure that this time our governments are in the wrong. So if we get on together, I'm sure in the future they will try to understand each other better.
I think the important thing to consider is whether on the balance, the direction in which a nation is going is the right one. If two different, even contradictory opinions or points of views can be hospitable, can be exist in hospitality in the United States.
You're talking about Amelia's point at the beginning now.
At the beginning, yes.
Yes, when she said that she was confused because they could be pro and anti at the same time.
Yes. Can have hospitality in the United States. This is progress. It may not be, it is not weakness.
The dynamism of a democracy that gives hospitality to 2 points of view. I'm sorry, that's all the time we've got, but we've got...
Man, look. Man, look. Let me do this. y'all bear witness to it. So anybody got any feedback about what we watched or bear witness to? You can click the link on the YouTube video and join. I know it's a couple of people on Kofi's like page that tuned in to watch that both debates. But what I'm specifically trying to hit at here is the importance of why the Kofi Paisai research team exists, the Masi warrior clan exists, the Amin Ra squad exists, Brown Table, you know what I'm saying? The Black Brown Table exists. Scripture Ripters exists. The Dagger Squad exists. The University of Kemet Press exists. The Pseudo Killers exist. Right? Voices of Fire exists. Dr. Ma'at's channel exists. Because we're using a tool called methodology to help us get to an honest conclusion, to weed out the issues and the problems that we face among our people. That's a huge issue what we bear witness to, and it's still relevant today. That hasn't went away. That was 64 years ago. That ain't went away. That whole perspective about apartheid and white supremacy and the religious rhetoric, it holds true till today. Because the question was asked, you know, about unification. How, Sway? Because we had a SAW, but you know, a SAW is automatic. So we had a common enemy among us. And one question changed the whole dynamics of how we pursued that one common interest. It was 3 Africans, Ethiopian, Nigerian, and Gold Coast. We're just going to say Ghana. And a foreigner that was in South Africa. Right? Yeah, saw all day restaurant. So everything, right. So they all pointed and looked at him and her, the two that represented South Africa from a European perspective. They both had the same narrative, the same arguments, the same point for points. No matter what, that is what they're teaching. They're teaching the Europeans in South Africa, probably still to this day. So we have to use the tools that we have to disseminate information, fact check, cross-reference, and tell the truth. No matter how uncomfortable it feels. We need to know when we're being lied to, what it feels like, and we need to hash it out. Now, can we do this a little bit better? Yeah, we could do it a lot better. And some people are working on it. You know what I mean? Literacy, we need to get our literacy rates up. We need to challenge each other to be more literate, but also use proper research methods in order to disseminate information and know how to fact check and know how to, you know, do the right research. Make sure we're reading the right materials and don't be biased. Read from both sides of the actual argument. Correct, Dave. So we need to know how, because if we don't write in this moment that we're in, listen, we had Trump. He was a president, Trump. How? I don't even know how that happened. Right? We don't know how that happened. We had Obama, a Kenyan American president. We got Kamala Harris, a Jamaican Indian right? Person of color, female, vice president, right? You had all the you had the Mike Browns, you had man, I don't even want to name all the people. All the people that we lost to police brutality over the last 10 years has been crazy, right? We had Bill Clinton with the whole Monica Lewinsky situation. We had Bush with his shock and awe. You know, we had Obama with Osama bin Laden. We had the fall of the Twin Towers. When history is written, what will it say about us? When the history books are printed, who controls the narrative? We can get completely written out of history. We can get a whole different context. If we ain't the ones that's going in there and trying to write our perspective, it will be lost. And what happened in those two debates in 1956 and 1957 will continue to be pressed, because neither one of those people, those foreigners in South Africa, knew anything about what happened prior to 1652, and they both bought up enslavers. Give me a second, Savior. I'm gonna let you on in just a minute. But that, you know what I'm saying? We just come from, man, Trump just went through the ringer twice, yo. And they let the boy walk twice. So I'm about to bring on Brother Sabio, and give him a few minutes to let him build. What up, bro?
Yo, what up, Sean? First, I want to say that was heavy.
Mm-hmm.
That was heavy. And this is exactly what I've been wanting our people to see, how some of these conversations were developed. And I'm glad you did that, because I was exposed to some of those debates in college. I just didn't know where to pull them up. Some of those early debates between Africans and South Afrikaners and white people about Africa and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the perspectives of some of them Africans blew my mind. But I can see the shaping and the development of these ideologies through the programming of those young men and women right there, and how those ideologies were permeated and shifted and passed on. So I'm glad you did that. More people need to see this. It's real.
Yeah, so that was the intent. Thank Brother Sheffrin for that, because he sent it to me. It was like, you know, he really didn't say anything. He was like, boom, he sent it to me like, watch this. You know what I mean? And I think that was a pivotal moment for me, especially in the climate of what's going on. Like, you know what I mean? We got people talking about what they don't want to be a part of, or what the issue is, or something keep happening every year. Excuses, right? But if we don't do nothing in our moment, yo, if we don't write our history, we got a problem. Regardless, because the ideology of each one of those individuals, you had a Muslim, you had a Christian, you had a basically someone claiming to be Hebrew or was told that they were Hebrew, and then you had a European enslaver, right? A colonist, the children of colonists, the people living in the midst of apartheid, right? On the panel with these people. Listen to me very closely in what I'm saying. When it came to the religious rhetoric and the differences in faith in the first conversation,
it was all the black people.
It was all the black people.
I was shaking my head looking at the whole video like, this is crazy. They're arguing over the ideology worse than the person who pushed it on them.
Right. He stayed neutral. He didn't even discuss, the impeachment of Trump twice. Yeah, crazy. But you know, they didn't even point the finger back at the person who created it. You know, we heard the missionary word come up like once by the West African brother that was actually a Christian, which was crazy to me in the first video, but he brought that up. He did. He said it, right? He said
I
how
heard it.
Christianity, he said, listen to him. He said how Christianity wasn't around there 200 years ago.
I heard it.
But you know, but it's been there. And like, nah, we ain't know nothing about no Christianity.
You know
But
nothing about no
he adopted it. He said why he adopted it, because he thought it would give them a much better way of life.
Yes. And when I heard that, my head dropped. My head dropped. Because that's exactly what pastors and people say about this Christian shit today.
Right.
And this was in 1956.
1956, and the last video was 1957.
I hadn't seen that debate, but I've seen some. I've seen some debates on segregation, things like that, school segregation, and things like that. I haven't seen that one. That was a new one.
Yeah. So the intent and purpose of this was to actually make sure that we had it backed up. So Kofi, I hope you don't mind. I bagged it up on your page. Hopefully Facebook doesn't have any ill will or intent towards you. I don't know. I can't get the notification, but I'm pretty sure that you'll tell me. But this is right. But this is a crucial time in our history. I want 1956, 1957 was boiling, because in African American history, we were facing oppression, segregation, the biggest wrath of racism with the Klan roaring around, punking people out. You had all kind of stuff. You had the Columbia, Tennessee incident take shape and happen. And then next thing you know, you get your civil rights movement and all that coming forward. That was in the 1940s, but coming up into that particular area. Like, we can go back and look at lynchings and things of that nature. But what I'm trying to tell y'all is that colonialism, we just witnessed colonialism. Racism and colonialism worked hand in hand on the continent. But
yep,
our brothers and sisters, you know, faced it differently. What we faced and what we dealt with, slavery, we had two different slave systems going on. Look at the slave system in Africa. It wasn't necessarily a slave system per se after the Europeans had carved up the continent. It was colonialism was a system, was the root cause. And in America, it was slavery, and slavery was the root cause. You had brainwashing going in on both sides, but what they had on the continent was that they had Islam, which also participated in the enslavement, even more so than the Christianity. But in America, all we had was Christianity as a tool that was used in our oppression. So you had those things going, but it was kind of interesting, you know. I don't want to, you know, bash or beat up, you know, just keep it about the religious perspective. But it was it was interesting to see the dynamics of that when it was interjected in the first conversation. It just split everybody. Man, they was coming for that dude head, and then it just poof, it just went away, and then it became an ideology fest. Quick,
real quick.
And
ideology was the best.
The moderator changed it because she was trying to get that boy some breathing room. And I felt we couldn't get, like, you gotta let them brothers get it off, because they got this dude right here. Like, your people are responsible for what's going on in South Africa. And here you are telling me in 1652 there wasn't nobody in South Africa. That they just sailed on around in South Africa on free
empty land
and ran into some diamonds just out the blue.
Craziness, as my brother Garfield liked to say. Can't make this shit up, Sean.
Nah, you can't make it up, bro. So we got a lot of work to do.
Yes, we do.
We got a lot of work to do. There's a lot of challenging perspectives that we have to make sure that we're prepared to defend or correct. And we got to use our tools properly. That's our why. That's why we exist today. That's why we do it, because we know that one day that there's some kid that's going to carry my last name that I probably will never meet. But he's going to know that, hey, my grandfather or great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather, or whatever it may be for that particular person who it may inspire, hear me and says, hey, that's my grandfather right there. Watch this. And he's introduced to Damasi, to Kofi Paisai. He's introduced to our literature and things of that nature. He's introduced to all the families that's connected, that's trying to combat a lot of this misinformation and educate properly. You know what I'm saying? So that way that when they review, because they can get rid of YouTube. So if they got rid of YouTube, we're really condensed because we don't have enough literature written in our era to suffice.
Right.
So we have to keep writing. So with the 3 volumes set that we actually have, we got to produce more. Why? Because we got to be able to defend our stance and let our children's know that, hey, this is not right. And the only way to do that is to keep people trained up to a degree that it is inspiring them to put some work together, some collective body work together, publish not only their works, even write little small articles, journals. I ain't telling people to write a book. I ain't telling people to even write a journal or article, but create some type of way that you leave a legacy behind to educate the people behind you or even your audience, because we need the work. So while some people are dead or whatever they're doing or disseminating information a different way, so be it. But is it going to be sustainable to where our children can grab that information, use it, apply it, and advance it? That's all I'm saying. That's my why. It ain't your why, Sabio. I'm not putting that on you. I'm not putting that on other people. I'm just saying the reason why the Kofi Paisai research team do it, the reason why the Masi Warrior clan do it. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why the Amara Squad set the foundation for all of that to transpire for us on this side, right? Because we knew there's a bigger mission, and we have to get to that better goal. Continue to work because we're trying to create an institution to where that information can be housed and that legacy can be left. See, they can't take away them books, and they can't take away these cards that the Kofi Paisai research team got, right? Because these educational cards, right, that you see on the screen, can educate them.
Edward P. McCabe, huh?
But see, it ain't.
They got questions on them.
It ain't just that, right? Best way to teach your kids, according to science, right? According to science, we find the most genetic diversity where?
In Africa.
Okay, so let me ask you again. Now, according to science, wherever we find the most genetic diversity, we find what?
Oh, we find what?
Look at the screen. According to science, wherever we find the most genetic diversity, we find
life.
I got you, Dave B.
What's the answer? Life, humans?
No, the origins of that species.
Oh, the origins of that species.
So let's go to this. Let's go to this. Who spearheaded the idea of the United States of creating an all-black state, even discussed his plans with the United States president? You just answered it.
Did I?
Yeah.
When?
When you saw the name come up on the screen on the back of the card.
Oh, McCabe. You know,
Look,
I'll be forgetting, bro.
Who spearheaded the world's first economic system? The world's first. The world's first economic system.
Yeah, I know it was in Africa, wasn't it? I can't remember the name.
Nah, it was in Africa. The official free African settlement was spearheaded in northern Colombia of what year?
Um, 17. I can't remember. Oh, 1969. I was going to say 1769 for some reason.
In 1815, Garçon, a former slave, a carpenter at 30 years of age, would find himself spearheading the leadership of North America's largest free African settlement. What is his name?
What is its name? The settlement?
Yes.
That ain't the. I'm gonna have to pull up my notes, man. North African Fort Negro. You got me on the spot trying to.
No, that's all good. How long did
Burkina Faso
Thomas and Cora maintain its independence?
60 years? Let me just get 4 years. Oh. I didn't know about that one. That's a new one to me.
What two people did Stokely Carmichael get his new name Kwame Ture from?
Damn. I know this. I can't think of the names. I can't think of them. I really can't. I know it. When I see it, I'm going to be mad at myself. Kwame Nkrumah, see?
It's a cool Ture.
It's Seiko Ture. Yep. I knew it.
Maybe you know this. Maybe you know this.
So far.
Who created the term?
It was a black man. I can't remember his name. It's a
black
man.
What's his name?
I can't remember his name. He was a psychologist. I can't remember his name.
Okay.
I learned it in psychology. I can't remember his name, bro. This shit's so long. Oh, France Fanning. It's so long. This shit's so long. All of this shit has like left. I would really have to do like a refresher course on all this.
It's all good because with the cards, right? You know what I'm saying? Even though the answer's on the back, but you need to, read them. Flip. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Relearn them, right? Once you relearn them, then you can go ahead and you can create your little game or whatever you want to do with the kids or whatever you want to do.
Gonna make me grab my psychology book and read back up on France Fanning.
Yeah, but everybody got to do that. But at the same time, we're not expecting everybody to know, but these are useful things that can help you to know, right? So, we're creating ways to educate our people on this information so they'll know. And we got another set coming soon. And it's just some of the educational work that we're doing for the community to get this in the hands of the kids and stuff like that. But Dave, I got you, bro.
How much those cost? I'm gonna get a set of those for my nephew.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on the screen for you right here. Just let me know, Dave, and I got you, bro. I got you ASAP. So when you go on to KofiPiesideTV.com, you go under the learning market. Mm-hmm. Once you go under the learning market, which this is directly there, all the books are here with the description of the books. And right now, Spiritual Combat is cheaper here than it is on Amazon. And the quiz and educational cards are $16.50. You just hit add to the cart and run through, and we'll get them sent out to you. And Dave B, I got you, bro.
For sure.
I already know. You know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna have to get a set of them.
But yeah, so the link is also in the description. But yeah, Sutek just put them in there too. So that's really what we on. All right, hold on, Dave.
Yeah, that was one of the things that my psychology professor drilled in us about cognitive dissonance. And I'm upset. He would probably yell at me for not remembering his name.
He should. But not many people know though. So how can I ain't gonna yell at you.
I knew he was black. I just forgot. Like I said, it was 10 years ago that I took these classes. So this stuff will have to be like fresh on my mind. And a lot of this stuff ain't fresh. Some of it is, some of it isn't.
Yeah, but
I've been doing so much studying and reading.
Think about how much more you're trying to learn and what you're studying right now, because you're dealing with the Ottoman Empire, and you know what I'm saying? You're dealing with all that. So how can I expect you to remember some stuff that you learned 10 or 15 years ago, and right now you're studying a whole nother thing? Like, you got to have your memory jogged in order to retain any information. So I'm not holding you accountable for that, bro.
I'm just saying, I feel like I still should have remembered him. As much as I talk about psychology,
yeah,
that's one of my favorite fields and shit. But shit happened. It's cool. I ain't tripping. It ain't no big deal. Like I said, I'll get it back.
I got you. Yeah, we got you, Dave. Yeah, get them jokers, man. But we got to get the. If anything, if people might not want to read them books that we got. I wish they would. But these educational cards are just as equally as important. And you know what I mean? They're little small sample size questions and answers. Is it?
You're right.
You know what I mean? And one day I plan on what I'm gonna do with I need to start now, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break them up into 5s, right? And I'm gonna give my kids 5 cards, and I'm gonna get them like a couple of days to digest the cards that I give them, and then I'm gonna have them swap their 5, and then you know what I mean. They can test and train each other off them 5, and then I'll probably get them money if they get 100% right. You know what I mean? Yeah, incentivize the learning so that it'll grow on them, but at the same time, maybe spark their interest in trying to learn more about some of the people or some of the things that we actually talk about in these cards in order to help them in the future. And I was telling them that, the other day, have a reference 300 book volume library. You got 3. That's all you got is 300 books. I got you beat.
Man, I had about that many. I don't got that many no more. So I got about a good 78. Got to get my library back.
Yeah. So we was thinking that too, and that's a good point, Sute. Hey, Dave. Nah, that shouldn't be. Hold up. Give me a second. Don't order it yet. Let me see something real quick. Dude, do you got 2 cards on there? How many cards you got on there?
Let me show you this book. Let me see if you're familiar with it.
Share your screen.
You familiar with this book?
Hold on. I can't see it. Oh,
Crossing the Danger Waters.
Nah.
300 years of African American writing.
Tell me about it.
This is a book that has basically a bunch of stories that was compilated from slavery all the way up to the last story goes. I think it goes all the way up to Jesse Jackson. The last story actually in here is by Maxine Waters. It's her letter to the Senate Banking Committee. And it starts with Ivan Van Sertima.
I don't know about that.
The first Africans that came before Columbus. Then they have Oladu Equiano. It's a short snippet of what he said. Then you got early slave revolts, Lucy Terry, Jupiter Hammond, Phyllis Wheatley, African Americans in the American Revolution, Benjamin Banneker. I mean, it covers a lot of different. It's just it's a good book to have, and I understand what you mean about Oladu Equiano and Ivan Van Sertima, the first African in North America that came before Columbus and all that. But this was at that time, you know, and this was the book that they had at the time.
Yeah,
I didn't take everything. Like when I read that Ivan Van Sertima stuff, I wanted to research it more. So that's what I did. I went out and actually got his book. You know, I didn't just take that little snippet and run with it and start saying, "Oh man, we Native Americans." No, I didn't jump on that boat.
Right.
It made me want to explore more what he was actually getting at. Once I read and started reading more books and seeing videos by the man, I realized exactly what had happened with some of his information and how he was misled. So I was able to pick up some of the gems that he dropped and, you know, run with them and decipher what wasn't valid and things like that. You know, like you always say, use the proper methodology to fact check shit.
Yeah, that's what you gotta do.
You know, it's just I think it's a good book to have because it's some things in here like Frederick Douglass's "What to the Slave is the 4th of July." If anybody want to know exactly how he felt about Christianity and religion and all that, he does a very good job of explaining his stance.
Yeah, there was some questions about Frederick Douglass and that whole topic.
Yeah.
So you got some people that deemed him to be anti-theist, so to say.
Yeah. That's why I think people should read it so you can get a better understanding of how he felt and looked at this whole system. Got Notes of a Native Son, Visible Man, got the executive order. So you can see all the things that they were writing. Executive Order 9981. You can read the 13, 14.
Jesse, I got you, Jesse. I got you, Jesse. Go ahead, Savio.
Yeah, you can read the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. You can read Executive Order 8802, which is basically reaffirming the policy of full participation in the defense program by all persons, regardless of race, creed, color, or national origin, in directing certain action in furtherance of said policy. So this was a war action, basically, a war executive order. You know, you can read the March on Washington by A. Philip Randolph, The Ethics of Living Jim Crow. You know, they have a lot of interesting little stories in here so you can understand and see what our people was going through. You got the appeal of the Scottsboro Boys case. If anybody, I know you're aware of the Scottsboro Boy.
Yeah, of course. You know I am. We can talk about them and all of that.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me tell Dave what it would be. Yeah, go ahead. Keep building.
I just think, you know, it got stories in here from Alan Locke, Marcus Garvey, Blanche K. Bruce's speech and if anybody don't know who Blanche K. Bruce is, you really need to get your research up. You know, Blanche K. Bruce was one of the first black senators and got his letter to the United States Senate on the Mississippi election. You know, got petitioned from Kentucky citizens on the Ku Klux Klan violence. So they straight wrote a petition to the KKK on the violence that was being permeated on black people. You know, there's some gems in here. They got the signifying monkey, so you can understand where that come from. Got all types of little poems, plays, short stories. Good little book to pull from. You know, they got Harriet Tubman stories. You know, this book really helped me out a lot. That's the reason why I'm pushing it. The price of it is $20 US. Probably find it on Amazon. It's by Deidre Mullane. Deidre Mullane. Mullane. It might not even be $20 anymore. Yeah, I think it's a good book for everyone to have. And the other book I think everyone should have is Anthology. I haven't went and got that one yet. It costs 200 or something bucks. This is my Black philosophy book. African American philosophy book. That's another book I think everyone should have. I'm done, Sean.
Okay, cool. No. Yeah, you're right. It is a piece of work. So I just want to let everybody know, man. I want to bring people up to date as far as our quiz and educational cards. Man, them things is selling. I ain't gonna lie to you. You know, you just had Dave make a purchase. You just had Jesse, and Jesse's a big supporter too. Quiet as kept. He got some. So there's gonna be a small delay on some of the cards because a bunch of orders went out today that I am informed on, but we had already ordered some more. We just waiting on a re-up to come in. So as soon as that come in, it could be a delay in you receiving the cards, but I know what I'm gonna do. Jesse, hit me up on hit me up on Facebook, Jesse. Well, actually, I'm gonna hit you up. Hold on, talk Savio real quick. Kofi calling me, man. You know how I get with Kofi. You know what I'm saying? He wanna call you while you live.
Well, you know, first off, I was about to go to sleep. And then I looked up and I seen this in the back chat. And I was like, a debate in 1956. I wonder what they talking about. To hear the things that was presented from Africans, it put me in the mindset of the arguments that we have on these shows. It really did. It really made me think that I was one of them people defending Africa and blackness against Christians. I mean, we really have to look at that and see the significance of what we just saw. From over 60 years ago, 70 years ago. It's 2021. That was in 1956 and 1957. And those was Africans talking against Africans. The same way that we're talking against ourselves now. So, do y'all see our hindrance? And do y'all see why some of us go so vehemently and vociferously against some of these ideas, these religious ideas specifically? Do you see how they were defending it and disrespecting the people from the continent as they were? This is the same thing we're doing today. We'll defend the religion, but we won't defend our brothers and sisters. I'm more willing to defend my brothers and sisters than I am any religion that was forced on me by my oppressor, my slave master, my ancestor slave master. However y'all want to look at it. But I'm not going to be the one that's going to continue to intentionally and purposely, with an open mind and a knowing mind, lead my people right down the same path that we've been going down. No, y'all don't like me. Y'all don't have to listen to me. I ain't in it for friends. I'm just in it to help my people move forward. And if doing the things that I've been doing, coming on those shows like Mossy Warrior and learning from brothers like Sean and Sutek and all, that's what I'm gonna have to do.
The elder, man. Where the elder at? Where the elder at? He sleep?
Who?
You know what I'm talking about, our boy, man.
Who, Bro Ray?
Yeah.
Yeah, he probably sleep.
All right. Okay. He all right, though?
Yeah, he all right.
Okay, bet.
Yep, and he introduced me to all y'all. He introduced me to y'all. So I owe him a big debt of gratitude.
How much longer you got on your research? Because is it you and Ronald actually dealing with that, or what's up?
It's just me and Brother Ray right now.
Okay, you and Ray, all right, okay. Where he at?
He stayed down the street from me. Yeah, he right around the corner from me. So I wouldn't be anything without y'all. I would probably be super pseudo right now.
Okay.
Because there was a time when there was a couple people that was on a team that I was kind of rocking with. But then they started saying some things, and when they started saying it, it just didn't make sense. And had I not been doing the research, I could have fell down that trap and been over there with young Pharaoh and Seti. For real, had I not been doing the research and looking into the things some of y'all have been putting out, and wanting to go back and remember the steps of the scientific method, and how to look at things from a philosophical or scientific standpoint or doctor standpoint,
I'm gonna go ahead and tell you why I'm so hard pressed, like why I'm so anal about it, or some say antagonist about it, and kind of checking people. Like I think, and I said this in a discussion where when I was having with Pastor Bennett, You know what I mean? Where, he had posed a question to me like, out of all the people that go off your head on the channel, why are you only concerned with me? And I was like, and I don't think he kind of understood what I was actually getting at when I said it, but I hope, after the conversation, I kind of hope he understand what I'm saying now, because you just made a point. Like, I think it's imperative that we get it right. I'm not worried about who Garfield had on the panel. I'm worried about if we get it right, like if we're utilizing the tools properly, because it makes you invincible if we're using the tools properly to be able to defend the information, right? So I'm hard pressed to push people in that direction, because if we got a bunch of people that's teaching people in the community and trying to move information forward and update scholarship and stand on the shoulders of ancestors and all of those things, we have to train. But if you're training to fight a particular way and you don't understand that there's a method to training, right? Then you might be training for the wrong fight. And that's why I said it. I may not have said it correctly, but that's why I said what I said, because ultimately I really don't have no concerns with them. You know what I mean? Because I can look at the person that looked like me and be like, look, I really need you to be right about this. So it can't be challenged, because it was all right. It came to me about something that I did and some work that I actually did, and I was told by this particular person that's listening to the show that, hey, I need you to do this, and here's why I need you to do this, so that why academia cannot challenge or refuse your work, because what you're doing is the right thing and how you're doing it is appropriate. But I just need you to go back and tweak or change this, and this, so that one day it is, they can't say, I'm looking over that. Look at this. This don't even look right. He didn't even do this. He didn't even do that. This was information given to me by someone that cared enough to say, hey, look, if you want your stuff in the library, you got to do this. If you want these people to not dismiss your work, you got to do that. If you want them to recognize and uphold the information in here because it's solid information, then it's got to be presentable in this manner, or they'll just overlook you, and then you'll only sell to your brothers and cousins, sisters and aunties, and not everybody else. So it has to be presented in a manner. And I took that to heart. So, you know what I mean? Like, people don't really understand, like, what's the motivation behind it all. Like, why is he antagonizing everybody about their methodology? Because if there's a kink in our armor, we will lose.
Thank you. And and you know what? I'm glad you tightened me up when I first tried to open my mouth on these platforms. I'll never forget it.
Remember that. Yeah, well, I remember a little bit, but not all the way. It's kind of vague.
I remember the whole situation. It was all about the word believe. It was funny as hell to me. I still love it. I still appreciate you for it and all that. And what I really remember most about it is how after I showed y'all how I came up and figured out that the definition was to accept something without any reason for doing so. It was like a week of conversation on that word. That's what really shocked me. That's what really threw me. I was like, damn, they're still talking about that word.
Mm-hmm.
Like, damn, I didn't expect to make an impact like that with that word.
Yeah.
But I realized that the word held a different meaning than what we had always thought.
Mm-hmm.
because we thought the word believe meant whatever we thought it was.
Yeah, the Balai. Yeah. That you said. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. Like I was like, I'm not an etymologist or none of that. It was just something I thought.
Well, you got to think about it, man. That whole notion of that's the blackology side of it. Like we would take the words and we would flip it, and
Right.
Out of the creative genius of our people, but we kind of use it as a play. Be lie, be things of that nature, and we really ain't got to do all of that. You know what I mean? Like I understood, but it's like it's levels. So there's an entry level, and that entry level will get you on that. Like that's why some people who watch what is that show? It's 3 volumes, well, it's 5 volumes now, but old boy videos that he be selling, using people information and then selling it in video format. Tariq, he can get away with the pseudoisms because people are not up on that, and he doesn't advance the information in a way. You see what I'm saying? So
that's why I stopped listening to him, because I figured he was kind of Tariq Nasheed.
That's a detriment. Now think about it. Out of those videos that he actually put together, out of that body of work that he's presented to people, and people have bought these videos and now trying to so-called come into consciousness, how much of that information could we fully digest and use to move our people forward? What portion of that can we take and advance it? What tool was left, or the lesson that was learned from that? See what I'm saying? Like there's no
substance.
Yeah, there's no real substance to that. Now, some nice personalities that you put together, but there's no real substance. And then the most alarming thing is that you had some anti-scientific rhetoric permeates through every volume of that, and even pseudo history, pseudo archaeology, and a lot of pseudo claims. And that's a detriment. Misinforming Black people today is a detriment to our development and growth, because we're looked at by other people as stupid.
Bang.
And
don't want to learn.
Yeah. And so when we go back to the point of the high school debate in 1956 and 57, the way that they talk at the brothers and sisters that was on the panels, the way that the colonizers' grandkids talked to the Ethiopian, the Gold Coast, the Ghanaian, the Nigerian, they talk at and down. It was at you and down with no real respect. So, man, on that note, I don't want to hold us over. We've been building too long. I know everybody got to get up. I got to give me an oil change. I hope that this, Jesse, I hit you. I emailed you from an Elijah email. Don't make me call your phone. I probably had to hit you back again. I sent you an email from an Elijah email. It's me. Respond to the email for me, because I just want to make sure that you heard what I said during the show, the broadcast. I want to make sure that you're aware of that. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate everybody that supported the Kofi Python research team, the Mossy Warrior Clan, all that we have done and did. If you missed this show, please rewind the show back. Please, it is imperative that y'all go back and watch this show and follow the dialogue. I also put in the description the videos, but I need you to go back and watch this show, share this show with your family and friends, your kids, and just listen to the just listen to the perspective of continental Africans when facing the oppressive colonizers' kids in a conversation that was held in the U.S. and aired and broadcast on through the media. So On that note, man.
Oh, and I wanted to say this. I'm gonna replay that tomorrow if it's all right.
Oh yeah. We ain't tripping on none of that. You know what I
For
mean?
sure.
Yeah, we ain't tripping on none of that.
We're gonna talk about that. We need to. Yeah.
All right. So yeah. So on that note, it's Shimon Hotep over here, and we'll catch you tomorrow.
Peace.
Log in to KofiPaisaTV.com and get Spears of the Mossy Volume 1 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, from Spears the Pen Volume 2 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, Spiritual Combat Volume 3 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, One Night Before Bed by Any Harek Shun Calfunny, Kalawa's Trip to the Motherland by Kofi Paisa, From Cocaine to Consciousness by Any Harek Shun Calfunny, As I Learned, We All Learn by Kofi Paisa. Also, if you want fresh merch, go to our online store, Family Connect Apparel, and get all the brands. Also, get our 54 deck of quiz and educational cards available now on KofiPaisaTV.com.